Hey, it's Micah, and I'm going to do a recap of the projects that I worked on in 2021. Mostly animation projects. And a lot of times around this time of the year, people make videos about their New Year's resolutions and goals for the coming year. And I think that's because we become hyper aware of the fleeting nature of time. A year has passed, and our memories aren't always super accurate or able to remember everything. We just forget stuff. Human memory is very fickle and fragile. So I actually started keeping a bit of a daily journal. I consolidated it into a few pages because if you keep a journal, you don't get to forget all the details. So it actually makes the year, in a way, feel longer and more fulfilling by extension because you have a fossil record, something to look at and say, oh, I did this, this, and that. And I don't know if I necessarily like the concept of goals. Like, it's good to have, things that you're aiming for to achieve, but it's more pragmatic to actually focus on systems and routines that will make reaching the goal a byproduct. So instead of just saying, I'm gonna achieve this, it's better to say, I'm gonna do this. And then achieving X, Y, and Z will be a natural extension of your daily habits. I just am gonna go by a month-by-month breakdown of the stuff from 2021, and then afterwards talk about future goals for 2022. A quick summary of 2021 statistics is me and Brittany made 140 loops, animated visuals for live performance and music videos, and we worked on 7 main client projects. Brittany is, by the way, the person that helps me on pretty much all the animations, and also kind of my girlfriend. Now, I have noticed that every year I pretty much do a channel update at the end of the year where I say, next year I'm going to be focusing on animation tutorials and getting animation courses out. I've been saying this since 2016, and so far I haven't made a single animation course. So that's something that really bothers me. So 2021, I'm definitely gonna get a course out, or 2022. January, started animating cartoon faces and other VJ packs to plan throughout the rest of the year. And then at the end of the month, I talked to Anthony Shepard on the phone, which I absolutely hate phone calls. So I had to do like this meditation app to get my nerves down because I haven't really talked on the phone for a long time. If you don't know who Anthony Shepard is, he's an amazing animator. You've probably seen the music scene by Blockhead if you're into internet animation or music videos. He has like very Mobius style sense of depth, like extreme depth and really trippy shapes. Very much what I'm into, so it's kind of a good fit to collaborate with him. And then February through March, this was the most intense section of the year work-wise. These 2 months were crazy. We were working on a 1-minute live performance visual for the band Des Rocks. This black and white cartoon was scripted by Court Lawrence, who I met in 2019 while working on visuals for the Chili Peppers. In February and March, Brittany and I were also working with Anthony on a lottery commercial. This commercial combined live action with animation, kind of like Roger Rabbit, except the clients wanted to take all the cartooniness out of cartoons because they were super afraid that if the animation seemed too kid-friendly, no one would realize that it was for the lottery, and obviously only adults can participate. So there were 3 different directors on this commercial, all telling us animators to do different things. So that was fun. For instance, they wanted a fire to be really big in the fire pit, and then they changed their minds and wanted smoke. They just wanted smoke. And then they wanted a little fire. So we animated big fire, then we animated smoke, and we animated a little fire. By the end of it, they were like, actually the big fire looks good. So we went back to the first thing. So this particular project, there were a lot of edits, and it wasn't a situation where it was edits happening at early stages. These were edits after we finished animation. So we'd have to go back and redo animation, which is not ideal because animation is insanely tedious and time consuming. It's really hard to articulate to non-animators how difficult it is, because there's so many different steps to the process. You have storyboards, layout drawings, rough animation, tweaking the rough drawings, adding breakdown positions, figuring out the keyframes, adding in-betweens, and then cleaning up all the frames with the proper line work, then coloring, and then shading and compositing. If you have to edit something, it's best that it happens at the storyboard stage or at the rough animation stage. Once you get higher up in the pipeline, just the whole thing breaks down and you pretty much have to start from scratch. Yeah, those 2 months were the most exhausting of the year because we were working on the rat cartoon for 7 to 8 hours and then immediately doing the lottery commercial for 7 to 8 hours all in the same day. And then I recorded an instrumental song called Pulse. Then in April, a few days of final edits on the commercial, started designing characters for Anthony's pilot project, helped Anthony with an animated album cover for Super Dude, been studying Mike Mignola and the Spawn series to fully understand the shading style that was needed for the pilot. He wanted like very dynamic body types and really harsh black, powerful, blocky shadows. And then I attempted to learn Blender, not much success. May, remastered my 2013 album, The Tyranny of Thoughts. Haven't really had a chance to work on music since then, just demos here and there. Continued working on the pilot, and then in June, this was the first week of June, just spent catching up on Patreon packs, trying to animate UFOs and just have stuff ready throughout the months, because you have to keep in mind, like as we're doing client work, the Patreon packs still have to come out on the first of every single month. So that's always looming over my head. So ideally, I'd like to get 3 or 4, months animated so that I can kind of hyper focus on client stuff. And then I shaved my beard for the first time in 3 years. Then June 10th through 22nd, I flew out to visit Brittany. We watched a ton of movies, and I read art and animation books and took notes for future videos. Also started working on concept designs for a film idea called The Terror of Babel that I've had in my head for like 6 years. I just haven't had a chance to flesh it out. I don't really have much idea of what the story is, but the world is basically this tower that is continuously being built and falling apart, and it's kind of like a theme park type world with roller coaster extruding out of the tower, and these sort of bird ape hybrid people who are constantly building onto the tower and adding different types of contractions to it. And then there's also going to be like different factions that fight Mad Max style with crazy weird vehicles. And then at the end of June, went back to work on the pilot, and we had been working in the program TV Paint, which is my preferred program, but then we had to switch to Adobe Animate, which I'd never used before. It's kind of a nightmare to color in, but benefit to Adobe Animate is since it's vector based, no matter what resolution you're working in, you can zoom into things and twist them around and scale them and reshape them after you've drawn them without losing any quality whatsoever, because it's vector based. Problem is that it's really hard to color in it because the math is all weird, and so sometimes it'll calculate things weird to where it's just difficult. It won't even register where you're clicking sometimes where you're trying to color. So coloring was a nightmare. But again, the benefit of vectors, you can do all kinds of things with scaling, whereas bitmap programs like TV Paint becomes extremely pixelated if you zoom in beyond the resolution that you're working in. On June 30th, I bought my first car. And so that's a big deal for me. I've always developed slowly in terms of life skills, or I don't know if life skills is the right thing, but like the stereotypical goals that people have, like of the different stages of life. I've just always kind of been thinking in my own head, and just sort of, I feel like I'm kind of in a dream world in my mind. So like I'm not very well calibrated to society, I guess. July, created animatedloop.com, which is where I'm going to be posting my animation courses. But for now, there's just animated loops that creators can use for their videos, streams, social media, and live performances. as we're continuing to work on this pilot, I got a email out of the blue from Scott, who is the LD of the Chili Peppers. Basically, the email was all lowercase, no punctuation, and he told me he's got a project he needs help on ASAP, and he told me to call him. And of course, there was no number in the email to call him at. So to give you some context, super creative guy, super nice, always grateful to work with him. So the first time I worked with them was in 2017 for Incubus. Originally, we were just communicating via email, but he wanted me to get a phone so he could talk to me. So I bought a little flip phone. He told me, he's like, wants me to come down to where they were working on set. So this was around June 20th, and he told me he needs me down there by June 25th. It's like, okay, that's no problem. And then I get an email from their manager who's like arranging all the flights. The manager says, all right, Scott told me he needs you down here by the 24th. It's like, what? Oh, okay. I thought it was the 25th, but that's no problem. And then I get an email from Scott saying, okay, so it looks like we got you set to come down for the 22nd. It's like, what's happening right now? And so then the next day, he emails me, meet me in the lobby. Introduce yourself to the crew. Don't be late. And I just text him back. I'm like, I'm still in my parents' basement. Yeah. So anyways, the project we were working on was rotoscopes for the Offspring's tour visuals. And we worked on this on top of the pilot. And I started keeping track of the hours that I was working on for each of these projects. I normally don't log in exact hours, but I just was curious. So we finished the action scenes for the pilot, which took 150 hours, and the 7 rotoscopes took about 100 hours. And these are just my hours. That's not counting what Brittany or anyone else is doing. So this month I found out I had Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever and began treatment. This is a super rare and extremely deadly disease. It comes from ticks. Apparently less than 20,000 people in the United States get it every year. Has about a 30% mortality rate. But if you catch it early on, within the first 5 days or so, your odds of surviving are much better. And turns out I had it for a month, untreated. So I could have died, but I didn't. So it's all good. But yeah, I'm really grateful about not dying from that. And like my symptoms were pretty mild, so I just didn't really notice it. But it could have been bad. My rash is just now going away. And then in August, most of August was spent on roughing surreal orbs and apartment hunting. So I found a place 6 miles away from my parents' house. This is the first time I moved out. Most turtles don't actually roam more than 2 miles away from their birthplace. Even though it's only 6 miles, it's kind of a big deal for a turtle. So then in September, there was no client work going on. Basically, it was all focused on being an adult, trying to figure out this whole life skills stuff. So I moved to my first apartment. My little brother helped me move. This is the first time I've ever lived by myself. At the age of 31, I bought a car and moved out all in the same year. I know that 31 is quite late to move out, but I don't really understand the stigma to it all because everyone's on their own path, you know. It's not like everyone has to have the same narrative, the same life journey. Like, you have to go to college at this age, you have to get married at that age. Why? Who says? But I am very aware that I'm very lucky that I had a family that supported me and allowed me to develop my skill set and develop a business, where a lot of people don't have that, or they don't have the support. Definitely don't take that for granted, that I had an environment in which I could cultivate these skills and not have to worry about always being pressured to go a more traditional route. So I am very aware that a lot of people don't have that. A lot of mental processing, adjusting routines, figuring out a new way of living. There are also like vibrations in the floor and just sounds I'm not used to. So I didn't sleep very well like all of September, just because like my brain subconsciously was registering every difference as a threat. So then in October, I started a new project, and this is the one I've been on for the past 3 months, hoping it'll be done in February. I can't really talk that much about it because it's not out yet. But basically, it's gonna feature Venom and a trumpet playing Dr. Octopus, and it's gonna be a 1920s rubber hose style. So I've also been learning ragtime and jazz inspired music. Goals for 2022. As you can see, there was a lot of client work, and I want to shift from 90% client work and 10% personal projects. I want to reverse that, shift it to 90% personal projects, 10% client work. And I'm really hoping I don't shoot myself in the foot, or I don't want to burn any bridges or anything. I'm always extremely grateful for collaborations and work, and I don't take it for granted at all. It's just the past several years, there's animation courses and a personal film and music that I just haven't had time to focus on. Even if I work on it a little bit here and there, for a big project, you really need to hyper focus on it for a few months at a time. It's just I gotta get in the groove of things. So yeah, I wanna finish this film idea, the Terror of Babel, and then potentially start a animated YouTube series that'll be its own thing. And I want to learn Blender. I'm gonna be more consistent on YouTube, I hope, and also posting stuff on the music channel. So I really appreciate you coming along on this journey, and stay tuned for other stuff. And I hope 2022 is one of the most creative years for you. So I'll see you.